Okay, welcome back everyone. So let's continue. So we're going to look at question 1.9. So in the previous session I gave you, or yesterday, or Tuesday, today is Thursday, sure. I gave you a chance to do where you do all the steps, where you tick it off and then you circle it. Now I've already done it to make up some time just in class today so that we can focus on how do you actually capture it to answer the questions. So what you will see on question 1.9, you can just, as we go, then just flag it in your textbook and then do this process at home when you have some additional time. So what information they've given you is they've given you the bank reconciliation as at Feb 28. Then they've listed there what was the balance per the bank statement. It was unfavorable. They've got the outstanding checks with numbers, and there's an outstanding deposit. Then there was a correction of a bank error, and then there was a balance as per the bank account. Then they gave you the bank statement with all its details and then some additional information. Then they gave you the check counterfoil list as well as the deposit slips list. Now, if we look at the information, they ask you to identify any differences identified in the bank reconciliation process in a supplementary cash book receipts and cash book payments. So what they're asking you is to account for the adjusting entries that you have identified on your bank statements that needs to go through on your cash book receipts, cash book payments, to work out what is the amended totals so that you are able to do number 2, which is open, post to, and balance the bank account balance before in your general ledger. Okay, so that's what they want you to do. And then the last thing is compile your bank reconciliation statements. Now, normally in a test, you would do all of these things consecutively. So you would do the step where you tick off and identify what has not been captured yet, and then you would start filling it in on your cash book receipts, on your bank reconciliation to make up some time. But today we're just going to do it a bit more step by step. So if I open the cash books, the first step you would do is if you look at the check counterfoils total. The check counterfoils are all the payments that you have made so far. Just make it a little bigger. So that is what your cash book payments total would be to start off with. Okay? So that's the first thing you would fill in. And then your deposit slips would be what your cash book receipts amount would be before we even start with any amendments. So that would be step 1 when you do your cash book receipts, cash book payments 4.1. Okay, then let's quickly see what other information can we use. Now remember, on your bank reconciliation statement, we reconcile your bank statement balance to your bank account balance. Now, because it's the previous month, we would already know what the opening balance for our general ledger account is. Now, because of the fact that it's an unfavorable balance, our opening balance would be on the credit side. Let me just make this one bigger as well. Would be on the credit side as opposed to the debit side. If it was a favorable balance, it would have been reflected on that side. Okay, so we've already filled in 2 components without even looking at any other information. Okay, now let's see what other information do we have. For our bank reconciliation, what information can we fill in without even looking at any of the additional information? We already know what the balance is per the bank statement based on the bank statement they have given us, and it's a credit balance of 623 Rand and 32 cents. Now, because it's a credit balance on the bank statement, let me just make this higher. Because it's a credit balance, we know it's a favorable balance, so that's why it's positive on here. Okay, so that is 4 things you can do right off the bat without even worrying about the fact that you haven't done anything else. Now, if we go back to the information they've provided us, the first check is check CC864. Now, if you look at the other numbers, it's already 1120, 1121. So if we look at the first additional information, we know that that check is stale and must be cancelled. Okay, so when a check is stale and we have to cancel it, we initially put it in our cash book payments so that it had to be paid, but then to reverse it, if it goes stale, we put it in our cash book receipts. So that means our first entry in our cash book receipts would be that stale check, which we add back. Okay, then we tick off that we've done that. Another thing that we've identified, if you've done the whole process, is check 1120 still does not appear on the bank statements. So we carry it over to our bank reconciliation from the previous month and we add it on there. So let's quickly say outstanding checks. So we add that outstanding check amount, but because of the fact that we will have to deduct it when it goes through the bank statement, we show it as a negative. Okay, then the other items we've identified and we said, let me just make it a little bigger for you guys. See, it's fairly small on the screen. So we've already identified the other items have gone through the bank statement. Now, to help you out if you get confused with what's a debit, what's a credit would be positive from a bank side and it would be negative from the bank's point of view. Okay, so this means the positive here is the money that comes in to our bank, the negative is the money that went out. Okay. Now, the other things you would have picked up is check 1124. Now, the additional information at point 2 says the bank has recorded check CC1124 at the incorrect amount. So they've recorded it at 131 Rand and 97 cents. But on our checklist, it was 146 Rand and 97 cents. So that means there's a difference. Now that difference is 15 Rand, and that would go to the bank reconciliation. Okay, so we include that error. I'm just going to unhide here. So that's the balance for the bank account. So we then include that error of 15 Rand. Now, because they showed it at too little amount, they need to increase it so more money will be taken out of a bank account. So that's why it's a negative 15 Rand. Then you'll see the monthly fees has been circled, internet banking, and if you move over to the other one, you'll see there's a government levy. Okay, the interest on overdraft. So those monthly fees, government levy and that would be your bank charges. Now your bank charges, we would generally show on our cash book payments. So what we do is we show it as one line item and then we go add up all of those amounts to get to that value. So then you would tick that off. Then we've got a direct deposit from Jane Lobu. So that's money that our debtor put directly into our bank account. We weren't aware of it, so we need to go add it to our cash book receipts to increase our balance. So that's where we reflect that difference. Then if we move down, we've already accounted for the internet banking fees. Okay, so now we've indicated that check C116, we've put it in here. It's on our check counterfoils, but let's see what additional information they gave us regarding that one. Okay, so here at the bottom, check CC1126 was erroneously debited twice on the bank statement. Okay, so what happened is it was debited twice. They've deducted it from our account twice, so that means this is an error that the bank needs to correct, so we include it on our bank reconciliation. So we add that check. So if they've deducted it twice, we will add it back to make our balance bigger again. Then if we move over to the other entries, we see there's a RD check for O Portreater. When a check bounces, initially we would have had it in our cash book receipts, but if it is rejected, then it goes through our cash book payments entry, and we add it to that to net off the initial receipt we indicated. Okay, then there was a deposit of 1764. Okay, and they tell you the deposit corresponds with SL460, was credited on the bank statement on 19 March with the correct amount of that. Okay, so it was shown in March only. We are busy with, okay, so that was Feb. And it is shown in March, but let's quickly see if it's a deposit. Is it on our deposit list? Let me just scroll to the deposit list. Okay, so it's correct in the bank there, but we had it at a different amount. So that means we need to add that additional 100 Rand, which we short entered into our cash book receipts. So we need to correct that error. So we add it on here. So the correction, the 100 Rand difference. Then if we go, we see there's a deposit from SARS. Now that came directly from SARS. We have not captured in our cash book receipts. So we include it in there, and then we work out our new balance. Okay, now once you've got to the total of your cash book receipts, cash book payments, then you go enter it into your general ledger account. So we transfer that 110 to our general ledger account. Now let's quickly see what other information we have. So we've got the government levies. Then you see there's this weird check number. Now we know that check number is not ours. So we would then put that onto the bank reconciliation as an error that needs to be corrected. Now because they've deducted it from our bank account, we would add it back. Then we've got interest on overdraft. Now that is an entry that went through the bank but has not been reflected on our cash book payments. So we show the interest on overdraft as an entry on our account. Then we've got two debit orders that have been reflected on the bank statement but has not been shown on our cash book. So we just add those two. And then we get to our updated cash book payments amount. Now that 30,000 then gets transferred to the credit side of our general ledger account. Okay, and then we have to balance it. Now the first thing you have to look at is if you add those two together, it adds up to 80,000. Now that is less than the 110,000. So that means our total would be the 110. And then the balance would be on our credit side here that's carried down of 29,000, which means we will end up with a favorable bank balance of 29,000 on the 1st of April. Now this amount here should agree, oh sorry, let's not make, okay, so that amount here should agree to our bank balance here of 29,000. So that's what we need to reconcile to. But as you can see, there's still a few things missing to reconcile back to that balance. Okay, now let's quickly see what is still outstanding. What have we circled but not accounted for? So that we have to go back to our list here. So there's two checks that's on our counterfoils that hasn't gone through our bank statement, as well as two deposits. Now if I enter those two checks as well, and I then add the outstanding deposits, and I add all of that together, you get to the 29,135,000. Okay, so this question is the way they've structured it like this for your cash book receipts, cash book payments is very similar to what your assignment question looks like, as well as the general ledger. So here you can see we started off with an unfavorable balance, but we actually ended with a favorable balance because our receipts for that month was a lot higher than our payments. Okay, and if this balance and that balance does not agree, it means you've made a mistake on your cash books here. So you've entered something on the incorrect side or at the incorrect amount. Okay, do you guys have any questions on question 1.9? Is there anything I need to re-clarify or re-explain? Okay, then just for learning unit 1, what I want you to do for homework specifically is go through questions 1.6 to 1.8. Those are theory type questions, and the suggested solutions is in the back of your textbook. So I want you to try them first and then just go through the suggested solutions to see how you should structure your answer to answer those. And then remember to complete your ICE activity, which is due tomorrow. Okay, so let's move on then to learning unit 2.